Spanish voters get set to go to the polls this weekend in the third general election in 4 years. This after Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez saw his 2019 budget rejected in February. His socialist PSOE party only lasted a number of months, having taken office last June with a minority government. Joining me from Madrid is Daniel Lacalle, chief economist at Tressis. Daniel, good to see you. There seems to be a very high amount of undecided voters with not many days left. So what's your kind of instinct about where we might get to in terms of the vote?
Yes, if we look at the polls, there's about 40%, 40% of voters that are undecided. My feeling is that they are not undecided in terms of what policies or type of ideology they're willing to vote for, but that they're undecided about which party to vote. We have basically in these elections there are two separate, let's say, ideological areas, or ideological grounds. On one side you have the center-right alternatives, the Popular Party, Ciudadanos, and Vox, and on the other side you have the socialists, that you mentioned, PSOE, and Podemos, the extreme left party. So I think that what voters are deciding is which alternative out of those two big groups will they decide for. And I think that that is probably something that they will probably decide in the last day, if not on the same day.
So what's your kind of base case around what coalition you think we might come to? Because it seems as though a coalition is pretty much a certainty, but what's the combination going to look like?
Yeah, so far it looks like there's only two options. One is a coalition of the Socialist Party with the extreme left and the separatists. The other is a coalition of the Conservative Party with the liberal center Ciudadanos and the help of the more alternative right type Vox, which is what's already been implemented, for example, in the Andalusia region. So it looks like that those are the two options. I don't think that there is any other option right now, and I don't think that in any of the estimates seen in the polls you have any other alternative coming up. So it is likely going to, and it's very, very tight. I believe that it's going to be very tight because although the percentage of and number of voters that will place the vote on either the center right or the left is actually pretty clear. It is not so clear how will that translate in number of seats in parliament because of the way in which the electoral system works in Spain.
So what do you think is the best outcome for markets and the economy? Of course, we know markets tend to prefer more sort of right-leaning political parties, but of course Vox is very, very extreme on the right, so that's kind of seen as a tail risk, right?
I don't think that that is a tail risk, but fundamentally because in terms of economic policy, Vox has absolutely nothing to do with, let's say, the Liga or the National Front in France or similar parties like that. They're actually quite similar in terms of economic policies. Okay, in terms of economic policies, they're actually quite similar to, I would say, for example, free market type of parties like the Conservative Party in the UK or in Ireland, but obviously it is likely to be the coalition, the most risky coalition, in my opinion, is the one in which the socialists get together with a very fragmented group of extreme parties, be it the extreme left of Podemos and the separatists. Obviously, that is quite a challenge because they have very radical agendas: the separation, the secession of some regions, extreme spending and tax increases, very similar to, for example, the Greek Syriza or things like that. So, and it's very difficult for the Socialist Party, which tends to be a moderate force, to get together with those without falling into extremes. In the case of the Conservatives, we believe that is quite different because in terms of economic policy, there are very little actually differences between the liberal, more social democrat type Ciudadanos, the alternative right Vox, or the conservative free market Popular Party.
So in terms of the markets, where do you think we're likely to see the volatility on Sunday rolling into Monday? And how do you think investors should be playing this? How should we be positioned heading into the weekend around the IBEX and the euro?
Yeah, I think that we continue to be cautious with the euro. I think that obviously the weakness of the euro has many factors. Obviously, a very aggressive policy from the European Central Bank. Additionally, the risk of the weakening of the eurozone economies, and you've seen it break 112. So I would be cautious on the euro in general. On the IBEX, the biggest risk is not necessarily on the political landscape, because the IBEX's earnings are very widespread and very global. More than 60% of the earnings of the IBEX are generated outside. So the IBEX is more, let's say, impacted by the weakening and the slowdown of the global economy, and the earnings season is likely to be moderate, not particularly optimistic. So I think that in terms of investing, you also have, from a political perspective, a very challenging reality, which is that even after the elections on Monday, you are likely not to see a government formed until June, because in May we have municipal and European elections, and many of the parties that will participate in these likely coalitions are not going to sort of show their cards, if you will, by agreeing on a coalition with one of the major parties, because it would definitely hurt them in terms of number of votes in the municipal, in the regional, in the European elections. So you're likely to see a period of uncertainty in the next months in Spain that is not going to be supported, if you are long the IBEX, by an earnings season that is likely to be okay, but nothing spectacular.
So back to the politics quickly. We're 2 years on from the secession referendum in Catalonia. So what does this election mean for the separatists there?
Well, obviously the separatists are expecting to be a major force in deciding if the Socialist Party is the most voted party on Sunday. The separatists are going to be a major force in terms of forming a government. So I believe that their strategy is obviously to gain as many seats as possible in parliament in order to force the socialists, if they win, to have an agenda that will allow them to move closer to secession. I think it's very, very, very challenging and very difficult in any sense, but it will very likely move the Socialist Party, which is not in favor of secession and has never been a party that has defended the breakup of the nation, but it is likely to move the party to be probably let's say supportive of a dialogue that might put at risk some perceptions of the unity of the nation. In any case, I think that whatever the outcome on Sunday is, precisely the fact that these separatist parties are likely to force the political dialogue to the extreme is going to backfire on them, as it did in the past, and very unlikely that we see any sort of movement towards secession.
All right, and very finally, I wanted to get your view on the outlook for the Spanish economy right now. How strong a position do you think it is? Because it seems as though it was one of the stronger economies within the Eurozone, but we are beginning to see some cracks appear. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's obviously in an aggressive slowdown, because the Spanish economy had a lot of tailwind into 2018, and it was showing decent levels of growth, but the cracks were already starting to appear at the end of last year. Industrial production, exports, consumer confidence, economic sentiment, etc. All those leading indicators started to show negative figures. We have already seen that the list of leading indicators published by the Ministry of Economy. Most of them are in negative territory as well. Today's unemployment data today. It was the first quarter unemployment data was very, very poor. The country is starting to increase unemployment, unfortunately, again, and therefore I think that what is very evident is that there is a slowdown quite similar to those of other economies in the Eurozone. However, the Spanish economy is more fragile, more vulnerable, much more cyclical, and as such, we need to pay a lot of attention to the policies that will be implemented as from Monday, because if they are pro-growth and pro-employment, they are likely to continue to help the economy. However, if what we start to see is a going back to 2008 type of policies, the idea of massive spending and massive tax increases, obviously that could put a dent on growth, job creation, and improvement of industrial production.
Daniel, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
That was Daniel Lacalle, Chief Economist at Tressis. I'm Victoria Scholar, and remember to find me on Twitter for more updates. I'm at VictoriaS_IG. Goodbye for now.